What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Chat HVAC. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Chat HVAC, where we give you quick answers to your comfort questions. And today, we've got a very special episode planned for you today. This is our first guest on the show, and I figured what better guest to talk about HVAC-related things directed at homeowners than another technician that works with me. He talks to customers every day and answers these questions just like I do on a daily basis. So we thought it would be good to get Brendon on the show. And before we dive in, before we get too far into our subject matter today, I just want to go ahead and remind you to like and subscribe to the show. Those are the two best ways that you can help us out. If you want to support the show in any way, if you like what we're doing here at Chat HVAC, subscribe to the show, share it with a friend. So, without further ado, my guest today is Brendan Phillips. He's a technician that works with me at Comfort Solutions Heating and Cooling. We are a residential HVAC company based in the Cincinnati area of Ohio. And Brendan has been with us going on 2 years now. Is that right, Brendan?
That's correct, yeah.
Awesome. So, Brendan, before we get into kind of our main subject matter, which is the top 5 HVAC myths that could be costing you money, tell us a little bit about how you got into HVAC, maybe why you wanted to get involved in HVAC, and maybe what you like about it.
Yeah, so I, as you said, started with the company about 2 years ago. Before that, I was looking to get into the trades in general. I initially was looking at plumbing work, actually shadow for a few companies. And through things like YouTube, resources online, I was checking out videos related to HVAC and just kept on diving more into the material. I started taking classes at local trade school there at Butler Tech, and it's just been going from there.
That's awesome. That's great. So as far as HVAC is concerned, maybe what drew you to the trades? What do you like about the trades? Do you like the type of work? Do you like the lifestyle it provides? Like, what kind of piqued your interest as to getting involved in the trades? Because I feel like this is something that is kind of on the rise lately, as people getting involved in trade companies, trade-based industries, whether that's plumbing, HVAC, electrical, or whatever else, what other trades are out there. What made you in particular want to kind of jump into the blue-collar lifestyle?
Right. Speakers like Mike Rowe were a big inspiration.
Yeah, I like listening to him speak.
Specifically with HVAC, there's just so many different aspects to it. You got electrical, some plumbing, gas, and there's just a lot of variety to the field itself that really piqued my interest. It's a field that you always have to keep on studying and learning, and that was a big draw for me.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Brendan, is that those electricians and plumbers out there, they can only do one thing. HVAC has to do it all. So we're the superior trade. That's what I heard you say. Okay, enough of that. Brendan, I appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and jump into our main portion of the show for today, which is the top 5 HVAC myths that could be costing you money. These are things that you might believe or might not believe, or maybe you know somebody who believes them. And they could just be honest misconceptions about how HVAC works, what actually goes into energy savings, what goes into efficiency, and some other questions as to, like, does the size of your HVAC system matter? Can you get a bigger air conditioner, or is your air conditioner properly sized for your home? All of those things are very popular misconceptions, and we just want to try to address those in an honest way and give you the information that you need to be able to be armed and ready to operate your HVAC system as best as possible. Right here at the top, we're going to go ahead and start with myth number 1. Bigger HVAC systems are always better. Brendan, is this something that you've run into homeowners talk to you about? Whether they, for example, they might have a 3-ton air conditioner, but it's time for them to get a new one or consider a new one, and they ask you just to put a 5-ton in because they feel like it would put out more cooling. Is that something that you've run into a lot?
On occasion, it's definitely infrequent. This may have been an issue more so in the past, but something more that you could speak to that people have a better understanding of the importance of sizing equipment. Larger HVAC system does not mean you get more cooling or more heating. As a matter of fact, improper sizing can lead to certain negative issues like short cycling of the equipment, uneven cooling or heating throughout the house. You may, especially on an oversized AC unit, have high humidity problems due to the short cycling. The systems have to run long enough, or specifically an AC system, has to run long enough to pull the moisture out of the air. So yeah, bigger does not always mean better with these HVAC systems.
Yeah, that's really good. When, as far as air conditioning systems are related, and maybe we can transition to heating systems here in a second, but if somebody has a 3-ton system or a 4-ton system, what does that exactly mean? What does that equate to? Do you want to maybe explain how the sizing lingo kind of works for homeowners that might be watching?
Right. So the the tonnage of a system relates to, it's an old industry term that related to how much ice could be produced over the course of a day. So it's complicated math and stuff, but in layman's terms, you have typically in a residential system sizes between 2 to 5 is pretty standard, or 1.5 to 5, and typically a larger system would be closer to the to 5 tons, and a smaller one be closer to 1 ton.
So is air conditioning systems, their sizing has a purpose. Each house is designed to have a specific amount of cooling that's produced, a specific capacity of cooling that's produced. And I think that's really helpful for homeowners to understand, and for people to be aware of that, if you live in a house that has a 3-ton system, it was designed for a 3-ton system, and your ductwork was sized for a 3-ton system, putting in a 5-ton system could have some adverse effects on the home. Is that maybe what you're talking about, Brendan?
Yeah, absolutely. Like okay. As you say, you certainly shouldn't, if your system's sized for 4 tons, try to put in a 2-ton system to save energy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it could go the other way, where people are starting to become aware that these larger capacity systems are using more energy. They might want to put in a smaller one to save a little bit. So I haven't run into that one yet, but I'm sure it's not far off with the way the energy costs are at the moment. So like Brendan said before, the bigger is better notion is something that we saw a lot in previous years. I still run into it from time to time where I'm helping customers purchase new systems. But the biggest thing here is the capacity of cooling that's produced. And if you cool the air, like Brendan alluded to earlier, if you cool the air too quickly, you will cool the sensible, or the temperature that you feel. You'll cool that temperature in the house down to where you want it to be, but you'll leave all the humidity and you'll leave all the moisture because it won't be able to dehumidify properly. So yeah, those are all really good things to consider with the first myth. Let's move on to the second one. I feel like we've addressed the first one pretty adequately. So myth number 2 is you only need to change your filters once a year. And Brendan, before I give this over to you, I'm going to add a little caveat here. Most houses, at least that I'm in, I'm sure that you're in, it's similar. Most houses have just kind of your basic 1-inch filters. So let's answer this question, or this myth, in the context of a customer having just a basic 1-inch filter in their system.
Yeah, and I think you've alluded to this on previous podcasts. Standard, very typical 1-inch filter should be replaced once every 30 to 90 days. That a 1-inch filter, this relates to the amount of surface area available to the filter, so they can get clogged up much sooner than thicker filters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right, Brendan. And if you guys have watched the show at all, and you've watched any episodes, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned the importance of air filters in every single episode. But for those of you who may have missed the episode that we did exclusively on air filters, I will link that below, and we will. You'll be able to go ahead and watch that and get the information that we discussed there. And but yeah, air filters. Changing it once a year, if it's a 1-inch filter, those are designed to be 30 to 90 day filters. And as I alluded to in the previous episode that we did about this, just for those of you who didn't watch, I'll provide a little bit of that information here. A 1-inch filter is a 30 to 90 day filter, but really you should start checking it after 30 days. And the reason why is it can get plugged up with dirt and dust and debris. And if it's plugged up and it's not able to have the proper air velocity going through the system, then it can have some adverse effects. Brendan, we're coming into winter. What might be kind of an adverse effect of leaving a dirty filter in there too long in the heating mode as we're kind of coming into winter?
So air has to have a place to flow to. It has to flow through the equipment, ideally unimpeded as much as possible. And if that air cannot flow, it can't transfer heat properly from the furnace. This can lead to excess heat buildup on the furnace itself, and it would just overheat the system, which increases the amount of stress on the furnace itself.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. Yeah, I've got nothing else to add on that note. So pressing on. So just to review a little bit, myth number 1, bigger HVAC systems are always better. Myth number 2, you only need to change your air filters once a year. Moving on to myth number 3, closing your vents in unused rooms saves energy. This is something that I have run into a little bit out in the field. Brendan, I'm curious on your experience with this. But another popular reason for people closing excessive amounts of vents in the house is not necessarily from the argument of saving energy, but they want to have like a quasi zoning system. So those are probably the two. We'll put those two in one. We'll add both of those to this one. What's your experience with that, and maybe how could you speak to that for homeowners as far as that myth is related?
Yeah, I always recommend don't shut off all the vents that you have all on a single floor to try to. I find this most commonly in two-story houses that they're trying to get more cooling during the summer in the upper floors and trying to get more heat in the wintertime in the upper floors. Air has to have somewhere to flow to. If you start closing off all these vents haphazardly, it just adds extra stress to the ductwork that's not designed to do that. Systems have to be specially designed to accommodate zoning systems. A DIY zoning is not recommended. Haphazardly closing off these vents adds extra stress to things like the blower motor. It's trying to push the air somewhere and it just has nowhere to push it to.
Yeah, you're exactly right there, Brendan, and I appreciate the insight on that. And yeah, something that I've run into a little bit out here in the wild as HVAC technician is people wanting to kind of isolate. And I guess this zoning kind of goes into the whole energy saving argument, which addressing that myth is also addressing kind of the zoning function that people are trying to get without purchasing a zoning system, which would be they only want to heat or cool the rooms that they're in. And they feel like if they block off the other registers or the other vents in rooms that they're not using, then they'll just save energy because it's only cooling or heating one room, which is the same premise for operating a zoning system, like a genuine zoning system on a single stage piece of equipment. You know, you're restricting a portion of the airflow, but it's the equipment is still operating at the same efficiency. It's still operating at the same capacity. It doesn't have any ability to stage up and down. And I have talked about this on a previous episode as well, so I won't go into that as much as I did in a different episode. But yeah, so myth number 3, closing vents in unused rooms saves energy. I think we can definitively say no on that. That is not the case. And there could be some negative effects for closing off excessive amounts of registers in the house in unused rooms, or if you block off all the first floor registers to get more air up to the second floor, things like that. The system produces a certain amount of capacity and it has a certain amount of air velocity and air volume rather that it has to get rid of. And if it can't get rid of all of that air that it's producing, then it's going to cause some high pressure issues and things like that. So pressing on here to myth number 4 is maintenance is unnecessary unless something breaks. I hear this pretty much on a daily basis, where specifically from people who have like newer equipment, 5 years and under, they'll say, well, I don't need maintenance on my HVAC system because it's new and I'll just call you when it breaks. Is this something that you've run into, Brendan?
Yeah, more than a few times. Regular tune-ups, they help to prevent breakdowns, they improve efficiency and extend the system life. Even on a new piece of equipment, I've come across cases where rodents especially like to make nests in outdoor units. They like to crawl into flue pipes. Doing a maintenance, scheduling maintenance before you need it, before the season in which the equipment would be running is always recommended to just catch some of these major issues that in the case of rodents and other critters making nests, they can chew on wires and you might not even notice an issue with a piece of equipment until much later. Like there might not be anything wrong in the immediate moment, but then they keep on building a nest, and the equipment never fails right when you need it to.
Yeah, I would
So
agree with that. I would agree with
we
that.
also doing maintenance. Also, we do things like adjust and verify the gas pressure is correct. That's again something that is not going to be so immediately apparent if there's an issue there. You'll turn the furnace on, it kicks right on. You're feeling hot air coming out of the vents, and all the while it's not operating efficiently. This is where we use the word efficient, and this is one of the areas that we mean you can get more efficiency from the system by just verifying that everything is operating within the range that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's really good insight. And especially as it relates to the winter season, we're coming into people using their furnaces more, using their heat pumps more, and there's just a lot of moving parts, just like there is in the summertime with checking out the heating capability, but especially with gas or oil appliances. Those things really should be looked at on an annual basis. Brendan, I think you provided some really good perspective on that. So we'll go ahead and press on to our final myth here, which is myth number 5. Turning the thermostat way down in the summer or way up in the winter cools or heats your home faster. So maybe to offer a little bit of clarity before you dive into this, Brendan, is say it's 90 degrees outside, people are hot, and their house, they usually keep it set to 70, but they're going to drop the temperature down to 50 degrees because they think it'll cool the home faster, or vice versa. In the wintertime, it's 0 degrees outside, which it can be up here, and they have their home set to 68, but they turn it way up to 80, thinking it'll heat the home faster. Do you want to maybe parse this out and kind of give us an answer on if that myth is true or not?
Definitively no. Equipment heats or cools at a fixed rate. Equipment may have different stages that it's capable of engaging in, but if it's at 100% capacity, it's going to heat or cool at a fixed rate, meaning that the air coming out of the vents is not going to become magically hotter or colder because you at the thermostat to a lower temperature. It will just run for a much longer period of time, and it may actually overshoot where you want it to be comfortable in your house.
Yeah, that's right. That's really good. I run into this a lot with some of our more elderly customers, especially in the wintertime, because they get cold and they want to turn their thermostat all the way up to 90 degrees to try to heat it up faster, or not even with just the elderly, but if lots of times when I go out on a service call, like, somebody calls in and says their system's not working properly, most of the time, probably 60 to 70% of the time, the customer will look at me and say, well, I didn't feel like it was heating, so I just went ahead and cranked the temperature up to 87 degrees and thought it might kick in. And so that is kind of a common misconception, bumping your thermostat up to an unreasonable temperature. And really what I mean by unreasonable is just significantly higher or lower, depending on the season, than you would normally set it. Like nobody would ever set their thermostat at 90 degrees. At least I don't think so. Or nobody would set their thermostat at 50 degrees. So setting it to those extreme temperatures in an effort to get it to heat or cool faster is not really going to do anything. Like Brendan said before, it's just going to cause it to run longer. You're going to use more energy, and you're actually going to overshoot where you want it to actually be as far as what your comfort level is concerned. Yeah, really good stuff there. Kind of because we're going to be talking about this topic next week. Well, not me and you, I suppose just me. I'll be here alone again. But smart thermostats, how can that maybe help with kind of regulating, maintaining heating and cooling temperature, and what can people do to try to stay as comfortable as consistently as possible?
Smart thermostats, they can anticipate changes in the weather, or they can sense outdoor temperatures, whether it's picking it up from an outdoor sensor or through Wi-Fi. And this allows the system to predict and adjust the temperature accordingly, or the amount that it needs to run by in order to use use energy the most efficient that it can.
Yeah, that's really good. And kind of a little teaser topic there. We will be talking about smart thermostats and if they're all hype or if they're actually worth it next week. So if that's of interest to you, tune back in. Kind of as we're going out, Brendan, there's a little bonus mini myth here. We don't have to spend a lot of time here, but this is something that I hear a lot, and I figured you heard it as well. We're kind of coming out of the summertime right now, but with heat pumps and things, They also use refrigerant. But the myth would be that refrigerant needs to be topped off every year. Just give me a quick yes or no and a brief why or why not.
No, your system, it's a sealed system. Refrigerant does not need to be topped off every single year. That's indicating some other problem that just topping it off is going to mask.
Yeah. Well done. Perfectly put. So as we're closing out here, and real quick, we'll just review the myths that we went over and their yes or no answers. Myth number 1: bigger HVAC systems are always better. No, I would say no. That's not true. Brendan, myth number 2: you only need to change your filter once a year.
Depends on the filter size.
Right. Yep, I would agree. We were kind of contextualizing it around a 1-inch filter. So in that case, I would say the answer would also be no. Myth number 3: closing vents in unused rooms saves energy.
It does not, no.
Myth number 4: maintenance is unnecessary unless something breaks.
We do not recommend that, no.
No, we don't. And myth number 5: turning the thermostat way down in the summer or way up in the winter cools or heats your home faster.
That is incorrect.
Incorrect. Yes. Wonderful. So just a quick little checklist for you out there as a homeowner to go through, and maybe some things to look at. Keep an eye on your system. These are some actionable steps that you can take from this episode and actually apply it to your HVAC system that you have at your house. Change your filters on a regular basis. For more information on what a regular filter change schedule looks like, check out the episode linked below on air filters. I believe it's called This Can Save You Big Money. Check out that episode linked below. We go over kind of the schedule for different sized filters, different efficiency of filters, and what the recommended changing frequency would be for each of those. We get into all those nuances that me and Brendan alluded to earlier. Schedule seasonal maintenance. So yeah, this is a big one. Myth number 4 was probably the one that we would stress the most. Please don't believe that. Not just because we're an HVAC company, but because maintenance is important. And then number 3 is trust your system. So if it does come time for you to purchase a new system, get what's called a load calculation on your house. Most HVAC companies can do that for you. We can do that for you if you're here in the Cincinnati area. If you're not, your local HVAC company should be able to do that for you should you ask. And then that way we will know definitively what size system your house actually needs in the exact measurement. So like I said earlier, if you are here in the Cincinnati area, you are more than welcome to reach out to Comfort Solutions. Our phone number, email, website, everything is going to be linked in the description below for your own use. And on that note, we are going to be getting out of here. Brendan, I appreciate you jumping on with me this morning and talking to the homeowners and maybe offering a little bit of advice, some words of wisdom. You got anything that you want to say before we get out?
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So everybody, I'll just remind you, go ahead and like and subscribe to the show. It's the best way you can support the show. If you listen to it on platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and leave a review. Those things help us out a lot. Subscribing, liking, leaving a review, commenting, all of those things boost us in the algorithm so the technical overlords can put our show in front of more people. So we will go ahead and get out of here for today. Like I said earlier, next week we're going to be discussing smart thermostats and are they actually worth the hype that they're associated with. So you all stay tuned.